So, yesterday I started talking about how I had this apocalypse where I realized that all the institutions that run the world are actually what traditional cultural content warns us about demons. You know, they all correspond to the description culture makes of demons. So today I'd like to talk about what kind of ethics and morals would be needed to function in a society where we reject the what I call the two unholy ideas that turn these institutions into the problematic entities that they become. And you know the ethos is where it starts, and one of the big difficulties that we have, one of the more crazy making things that features of our society, is the fact that all these institutions have an explicit ethos where they claim to be about something, and then they have a real ethos, which is what they actually do on a consistent basis. And if you observe any institution with attention and integrity, you're going to realize that these two sets of ethics are extremely different, if not diametrically opposed to one another. So, understanding how we define the things we want and the things we don't want is really a first step that's absolutely indispensable. And the first thing I see, the first thing that gets us into trouble, is we're always looking for somebody to hurt. These institutions, the only solution they know how to provide is hurting people. And that's the first thing we need to move beyond from, because it's not working. So, first basic ethical principle is humans are living beings, and living beings only ever do one thing. They try to adapt to their environment. Everything you've ever seen a human do was an attempt to adapt to their environment. Now, their adaptation strategies might be inadequate. The environment they're in might be outside of their ability to functionally deal with. But ultimately, there's no evil, there's no, all of these ideas are, from a practical standpoint, they're ridiculous. All you have is people doing their best to adapt. And if you're seeing people who are having problematic outcomes, trying to herd them into doing better is never going to work. It's a stupid idea. So if you're seeing people who are getting unsatisfactory outcomes, you need to figure out, is it the environment that's outside of these individuals' ability to deal? Or is it a problem of inadequate adaptation strategies? And you change that. Anything else is just looking for what feels good instead of what's going to work. And humans are strangely wired that, hurting people, especially if somebody else does it for you. If somebody's been hurt for something, we feel satisfied it's been dealt with. It's an irrational, dysfunctional perception, and we need to accept it as such and ignore it when we feel it. Seriously, time to get a grip about this. You have this notion that humans are always trying to adapt to their environment, and when you understand this, you understand that there's no point to the inherent cruelty of the institutions that we have. They're all based on an absolute misunderstanding of the problem. So that's the first thing. We have to stop interpreting every problem as, well, who are we going to hurt? Now, if you want to move past that point, you need organizational notions. You need goals. You can't just say, well, this is not something we want. We need to define what it is that we want. And if we look at what makes societies thrive, if we look at what makes any species in nature healthy, what we are looking for is the widest spectrum in every aspect of human existence. Too many institutions are based on the idea that we should make everyone the same. Making everyone the same makes things efficient, and efficiency is fattening. It turns you into a dinosaur. And the one thing nature absolutely loves, if you look at its behavior, is fatten the efficient and then make them go extinct. Because that's the issue with the efficient. They are efficient in a specific environment. The efficient has no resilience. And that's the crisis where we're experiencing now. We built public health systems for efficiency. Public health systems are something we need to deal with disasters. If you've got just-in-time delivery in your healthcare system, in your public health system, any disruption to the supply chain is going to make you unable to obtain the supplies you need for a crisis. It was an idiotic thing to do. It was a profoundly criminally negligent approach to have. But nature loves fattening the efficient in order to kill them with a little shake of the plate. And the people who are going to allow themselves to be had by this are going to suffer. We can't go for efficiency. Efficiency is suicide. So what's the alternative? The alternative is making sure people have the space and the safety to be as uniquely themselves as they can. That way, we maximally exploit the variances between individuals, which are what protects us from change. And as a species that lives in environments that we make ourselves, that we are constantly changing faster than we can biologically adapt to, surviving these changes, adapting to these changes requires so much more of a foundation of available diversity. So yeah, some of it is going to be, okay, so Jorge coming in with support for efficiency. Efficiency is suicide. I cannot insist enough on this. You can keep 8 billion people alive with efficiency until something changes. And then they are all going to die if the system is efficient enough. And indeed, the more we are efficient, the more we are vulnerable. And this is made obvious by this situation. There's no way we should be surprised by the emergence of a pandemic. These things happen. But we have been smashed because our efficiency is incompatible with the strategies we need to guarantee our survival in this situation. Now, we're lucky. This is as pathogens go, this is a very benign one. It's only dangerous in a few areas, and that might be because it genetically selects for a certain genetic background, as was shown in some recent studies. But yeah, if efficiency will kill you. If we're going to talk about ethos, if we're going to talk about, what would the ideal world look like? It looks 99.9% like what the libertarian ANCAPs imagine. 99.9%. There's two things that are incompatible with survival in the ANCAP vision. The first one, You need some efficiency, but if you do not have sufficient resilience to accompany it, you're basically casting your feet in cement and just waiting for the tide to come up. Some efficiency is good, but too much efficiency is what has killed everything that has gone extinct. Basically, every species that has gone extinct has died of efficiency, because efficiency is only efficient when the environment is stable, and environmental stability is not something we have. So, yes, everything the ANCAP see, individuals deciding what they make, not some sort of central authority. That's absolutely fine. Make it as organic as possible. Avoid institutions that make decisions for others. That's fine. But there's two things you can't bring, or else you're going to poison the rest. You can't bring money, because money is the wrong metaphor. Money is supposed to answer one question. And that question is, how much of a hassle is it to make that? And we use money and trickery to hide that in the information that money conveys. So money is actually not a good symbol. It doesn't actually measure the things we need measured, and it gives us false information about the world. It allows us to make bad decisions faster. So that's the first thing. Money doesn't work, and we need to get rid of it. I was as sad as everyone else when I came to that realization. I initially thought, like everyone else, that money is a clever tool. And then I thought about, well, what does it actually do? What does it actually accomplish? And it harms. And there's a simple reason why it harms. It harms because it was created as a symbol, and we are treating it as a real thing, distinct and separate from what it was originally intended to represent. And when you do that to symbols, you create monstrosities that are neither useful as the symbol or as the thing you were trying to create. And the other thing that can't make it is private property in the communist definition of the world. Private property as something you did not make and are not using, that you own to extract wealth from. And when that happens, what you have is a phenomenon called intermediation. Intermediation is when you build a fence around a resource people need to live, and you demand obedience for access. And it's a crime. It's a crime in any form. It's a crime in all forms. Intermediation creates an immediate self-defense requirement from the people who are being intermediated. We are naturally occurring animals, and we are all equally owners and property, because it's not that kind of relationship. It's more complex, and using these words makes it sound stupid. But we are both owners and property of nature at an equal level from each other. Any claim that you are the owner of more nature than I am is a ridiculous idea, and you deserve to be slapped for it. It's that simple. I'm going to read a couple of the questions because it looks active. Okay, so, it's all about the incentives and how money money doesn't create incentives. Fucking hell. I love working. I hate having a job. The money part of it makes everything worse. I'd work way more and be way more happy about it if working wasn't how I got the stupid tokens to keep the coin-operated life support in my prison cell working. Money is stupid. Intermediation is stupid. There's 3 reasons a person is going to work. If you're working for another reason, you're being scammed. I want something. I want people around me to enjoy the experience of having something. Making stuff is awesome. You don't need any more than these 3 reasons to get everything you want done. I keep giving the example with the potheads. What would happen if we banned the sale of cannabis and nothing else? You're just not allowed to sell it. Would it disappear? No. The stoners would keep us awash in pot. Because the stoners like pot. Some of them like growing it. And when you start growing that stuff, you're making too much for yourself. There's nothing special about pot. Everything that's true about pot is true about food, right? People like to eat as much as they like getting stoned. You don't need the incentive of money to get people to grow food. People love that shit. You need money to get people to grow food to make a third person who's not contributing anything to the process rich. That's the only reason you need money. Money is the lifeblood of intermediation. And that's why we can't have it. We cannot bring intermediation into a functioning society because that's not what we have. We do not have a functioning society right now. And if we want to build that, well, the first thing is that we have to renounce the two unholy ideas, and intermediation requires the two unholy ideas to exist, to be adopted, to be cherished as ideals. You cannot have property rights. You cannot have a person having lordship over other people's homes or other people's workplace. They didn't build it. They're not working there, not contributing anything to the process. The only way their property right can be made real is by creating an institution based on the notion that it is acceptable to hurt people over ideas. Let's see. Yes, we see how money as a primary incentive is art is creating mediocrity. Absolutely. It's suffocating. If you see the world as it can be, if you have that moment of apocalypse I was talking about yesterday, where you've suppressed enough of the demons that live within yourself. I'm not presumptuous enough to say I've managed to kill them yet, but because these myths run super deep in our minds, the level of brainwashing we're subjected to accept these ideas is maddening. But when you see the world, when you catch that glimpse of the world without these entities, these institutions that behave more like demons than anything in a demon story ever did, you see possibilities that make you shocked at how we're living right now. The way we're living right now is shocking. It's a tragedy. It's an abomination. The Dark Ages started before we learned how to write, and it's time to end them. Let's see. Adam says, epiphany, not apocalypse. I've had an epiphany before. I've had one in my life, and it's not the same thing. An apocalypse is sort of like an epiphany, but there's a critical difference. What you learn in the apocalypse makes the world as you thought it was disappear. It ends the world as you thought it was. Let's see. If a movie is good, people will pay for it. Who gives you the authority to determine what is good? Okay, look. This would be a good argument if we were not in a society where institutions like production companies were not obviously involved in extreme forms of psychological warfare, of mimetic warfare, of using extremely powerful tools to exploit and even, in some cases, create mental illnesses in people in order to get them to see the world a certain way and behave a certain way. And we need to differentiate between, there's people who have no taste. There's people who have taste that are different from mine. Under situations where there is malicious use of tools to warp the minds of people, we have to stop, going with this, people have their tastes. No, we're not in a situation where we know what the tastes of people are. We are in a situation where we know what people are being pushed towards. This is not an organic culture. This is a synthetic culture. This is a lab-made culture that we live in. humanity is flawed, but we could do better. Of course we can do better. We can do whatever the fuck we want. That's the whole point. Everything about how we live together is just ideas in our head. It's just ideas. And we can change them at will. We do whatever we want. There's the internal realm of experience. We have, some control over that. There's the physical realm of experience. And, we have control over that to the extent of our understanding of physics and engineering. Our perceptions do not change. Our thoughts do not change what the physical world is. Only our actions, as they are linked to physics and engineering principles, affect the physical experience dimension. The social experience dimension of our lives, we are the gods of it. Through our faith, we create everything that characterizes the social experience realm. We can do whatever we want there. When you understand this, you start understanding the criminality of how we raise our children to confuse these, socially constructed consensus realities that have their origins in our decisions about faith. We are told that we are brought up to think that these things are real. We are taught to think that money is real and there's nothing we can do to change that. That governments are real. There's nothing we can do to change that. Borders are real. Nothing we can do to change that. There's people living a couple of 100 miles from here. They're on the other side of a line. I'm supposed to care about them less than the people who live 1,000 miles away from where I live, because they're not on the other side of a line. This is stupid stuff. Of course we can spontaneously decide to not believe in that shit anymore. We have to understand that our faith, decisions we make about what we have faith in, is what determines the shape of the world we live in. You're in charge of that. You're the only one who can do anything about it. And until we figure that out, we're going to stay in this trouble. This looks like it's going to be some sort of systemic collapse that might be imminent. It never collapses. It's always the same snake. The snake molts, and then it rises with its new scales and tells us, "Behold, I am a new snake and your friend." And for a couple of years, it looks like it's true. And then it just starts doing what it's been doing for 10,000 years or more, eating us. Yes, Adam is talking about the phenomenon of learned helplessness. All education in humans is based on inducing learned helplessness. It's criminal. We have to figure out how to do better. Now Jorge is answering, if you don't act in a manner that produces more than it consumes. Look, Jorge, we haven't needed the labor of the unwilling for at least a century. We don't need it. They're in the way. They've got jobs that only exist as, ways of paying them for doing something. Screw it. If you don't want to work, stop. Because the 3 reasons are enough. I want something. I want people to have stuff. Making stuff is awesome. You do not need any more incentives than this. These are the 3 only incentives you need for work to get done. Yes, you have to produce more than you consume. Well, no, you don't have to produce more than you consume. You have to at least have a balance. The ideal system is in homeostasis. It's taking in as much as it's putting out. Even better than that is closed loop. You're introducing very, very, very little from nature, and most of the system is operating in a closed loop with the resources it has already extracted. That's even better. The notion of profit is only relevant when you're trying to grow. And the problem hasn't been not enough stuff for decades now. The problem isn't that we don't have enough stuff. Let's say it's more production than consumption. Why would you produce more than you consume? The only reason is to have reserves. Now you can have intelligent strategic reserves, and even then, at some point, you've got enough. Or you can have a hose plugged onto a parasite with bottomless appetites and call that a functioning system. And I don't know what's wrong with you if you do that. Mankind has been increased. Yes, we have. And we're almost out of nature to convert into garbage. It's not the right way of thinking. It's not the right model. It's not the right... Fuck. How more... Yeah, more like... That's fine, but there is a limit to the amount of life you can have at once. These things don't exist in a vacuum. These things don't exist in a model in which there's infinite resources for everything. Look, you're stuck, Jorge. You're stuck in a model. Step out of it. Look at the world from another angle, because the one you're trapped in is limiting you, and it's making you a slave to ideas created to hurt you. You're 99% of the way there, but there's these handful of concepts. They're designed to harm. They're designed to enslave, and you're buying them. And until you stop, you're going to be stuck there. Let's see. Salim is asking, we make so much food we can feed. There's 20 tons of food that goes into landfills for every person that starves to death. We have enough food. What we do not have is the willingness to take a small dip in profits to get it to the people who need it. Remy is asking, humans have two main bad tendencies, consumerism and seek of power. But those are exactly the result of brainwashing you describe. Very strong brain. It always comes back to that Anais Nin quote. You know, one day the pain of staying in the bud became greater than the fear of blossoming. And if you want to help the world, don't raise the fear of blossoming. Don't raise the pain of staying in the bud. Make the fear of blossoming more irrational. That's how you help. Just look at the way they are wasting milk because they cannot export it. It caused the actual crisis. Well, yeah, these hyper-efficient distribution channels, you know, you've got an entire distribution pipeline for restaurants and an entire distribution pipeline for grocery stores in the U.S. And the people from the restaurant pipeline don't know how to put food into the grocery store pipeline. People are eating the same amount of food, right? People are eating the same amount of food, but we don't know how to move the food from one pipeline to another to get it to the mouths of people, so we're throwing it in the garbage. This is the genius of capitalism. This is it. Anna is asking, would you agree to a certain extent the likelihood of a person to break free from that thinking process has a lot to do with their relationship with hierarchy? Absolutely. I'm going to say something that's going to be misinterpreted, and I don't care. Fuck the people who maliciously misinterpret stuff. There's really two types of people. There's people who are self-selfed and people who are not self-selfed. And nobody is self-selfed all the time. I doubt that anybody is not self-selfed all the time. I can't tell you if all or some of the people who are not self-selfed are really self-self people with a world-facing affect that is a survival strategy. Because I'd absolutely get it if people did that. Going with the flow makes your life a shit ton better, easier. It's only a problem if you're into authenticity and legitimacy and realness. And the society will punish you for that. And the proportion of people who are able to endure that punishment is not large. And the self people are the ones who are going to get it first. You know, the propaganda types, they know that the war is for the self people. They know that through using bots and algorithms and all kind of stuff, that they can put you in a bubble that makes the world look a certain way. And they can make you, if you're not self-selfed, they can make you into anything they want. But that works until you leave the home. When you leave the home, you start interacting with real people, and some of them are self-selfed. And ultimately, the self-self people are the people who drive changes in perception in society. And that's why there are so many traps for self people today. You look at all these conspiracy pipelines, all these alternate media pipelines. They're all trying to trap self people into certain ways of thinking. It's a war. You have to view it this way, that there's deliberate and malicious hostile actions being taken to affect us. Jean-François Chagnon is asking, building hotels for tourists instead of building homes and forget about R&B while we have so many homeless. Yes, the line between need and desire is fuzzy, but it's about fuzzy that wide. And building homes for people who need them, that's on the need side very, very obviously. And making hotels so that investors can get rich is very, very obviously on this side of the graph, which is not needed, and the desires of petulant children. Come on. The dogmatism about the unknowability of things that capitalists live by is batshit crazy. Like an economy is more complex than a human body, and yet we know that the human body can malfunction, and we know that there's things that we can do that bring it back to function because we've thought about it. We've experimented, and we understand that somebody being sick is not just a ceremony of waiting for the holy immune system to fix things. Like they want to wait for the holy market to fix any problem when it's causing them. Am I still